This is Samach Yehuda Richter. I'm showing you a chart of the Morse code dots and dashes, the combinations which make up each letter and each number. I took Morse code when I was in the Army Reserve in 1972, and I had to complete the course. I had to do 18 words per minute before being able to graduate and go back to my reserve unit. I'm mentioning this now simply because that Rabbi S.I. Levine had also written a book about codes, but his code was far different than what I'm showing you now. His code was on the code of kosher kashrut, which appeared in the Shulchan Aruch, which I was able to get after I came back from the Army Reserve. But in this particular case, while I was in the Army Reserve, I was taking Morse code and I was going to be a Morse code interceptor. However, my plans were dashed when I got back to my reserve unit in Minneapolis because my Fort Snelling commander told me that I had to serve on a Shabbos, and I refused to do so, and therefore I was transferred to another unit where serving on Shabbos was not a problem. And so therefore, I want to show you what I did learn when I was taking the Morse code in Fort Devens, Massachusetts. And it was very interesting because we were listening to a live feed on an antenna, and there were very many different codes that were coming over that live feed. But I can remember as of like it was yesterday that our antenna was very strong, and through the feed that we were getting was coming from many parts of the world, and a lot of times we would be picking up Morse code at very different speeds. So this was a memory I had, and I wanted to now show you how that compares to the Hebrew alphabet. Here we see a typical page that appears in any prayer book usually, and we see that on the front pages, it usually shows you the alphabet, which we see here are letters without any vowels or dashes. If I go down further, you will see the vowels and the dashes. Let me get my fingers out of the way. You'll see the vowels which show only dots and dashes, which are used to, when in combination of the letter itself, then that creates the sound which we are able to read when we were reading our Hebrew or when we were speaking Hebrew. Here's another siddur and another page that appears inside the siddur, but this time you can see that the vowels, the dots and the dashes appear underneath. Sometimes they're above, sometimes they're on the side, but that combination then determines what type of sound each letter and each word. After using the combination of letters, you will get a word itself making a combination of those sounds which are created by the dots and dashes, which are the vowel sounds combined with the letter itself. Here is a 1994 roughly edition of the World Book showing you the same thing. The Hebrew letters themselves are without the vowels, without the dots and the dashes, and underneath they put a combination of the letter, which is Dalet, and is pronounced like a D in English, and that letter combined with those vowels, those dots and dashes, creates the sound that you would say when you're speaking Hebrew and when you're reading Hebrew. So why I'm saying all of this is because here is a typical advertisement that appears in normally any Hebrew newspaper. And you'll see every single letter does not appear with vowels. So it doesn't have dots and dashes under it. But as Israelis, as somebody who reads Hebrew, then you're automatically expected to know what each word, or how each word is pronounced. And so the lesson I received from all of this is that perhaps when I went in front of my commanding officer and I told him I would not be in his unit for Shabbos, and he turned around and told me I could not then be a Morse code interceptor. It was perhaps an indication for me that something different, something better was in store. And now that we're in Israel, and now that we are looking at all the newspapers and a lot of correspondence, which is mostly without the vols, that perhaps was giving me an idea of what was to come. And I'll continue on my next videos explaining further the derech, the way that this is playing out, that this panned out after after we had started making the process of Aliyah, and what is the situation as of now.